Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Leadership. Rowan Dredge here, great to have you with us. So thrilled to have Andrew Menzies in this conversation today. Andrew is becoming a really great friend and just love being able to talk and see the sharpening that comes from those conversations. And it's just great to have you with us today, mate. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Hey, you've had a variety of ministry experiences, big ministry, smaller ministry, in different states, around different parts of the world, and you're now leading a Bible college, which is a significant responsibility for you and one you're very excited about. Just unpack a little bit about how you got to this place.
Well, I think the first thing to say was I'm not sure I got there intentionally saying in 20 years' time I want to run a Bible college. Even until 2 years ago, I was knocking back this role until God awoken me to a call to it. However, I can see trends now all the way through. I have, for 15 of my 20 years, been working with youth and young adults, and the focus there has been about development and leadership of people and leaders into ministry. So we ran a youth ministry at Crossway. We had 1,000 young people. But I think when I look at it, what was specifically important to me was the 120 small group leaders and the 8 or 10 staff who we trained and developed. We sent 60 people off to Bible college and develop them. And I think that pattern, I did that also in South Australia and in a national Baptist capacity with young adults and youth pastors, the same pattern. So I then went to Camberwell and turned around an old dying church that was toxic, not well, but in a city with the challenge of if we can learn some lessons on how you can rejuvenate a church in an inner city area with property worth 10, 15 million, but it's 30 or 40 people coming. Such a waste of stewardship. So I was interested in that model. I think ultimately what called me away from that was that while we turned it around and we ended up with a couple of hundred people and young families, and I think we brought the average age down from about 100 to about 35. I think it was that it wasn't about, again, developing the next generation of leaders. So I think that sense of call brought me back again. I had been on the table board, and that fulfilled a little bit of that energy, but I think the call to full-time giving my energy towards training and developing people was brought me back. So I don't think I intentionally set out to be a principal of a college.
Yeah, that's
However,
a good point.
You look at the passion and the thread all the way through, that kind of what you do and the opportunities tends to look after itself if you stay focused to your call.
Let me pick up on one thing you said there. You've said trends and thread a couple of times, and for people developing in their roles, and this is obviously specific around ministry because that's your bent, but presumably the characteristics can be true for other areas. This looking back, and how did you identify those themes and those threads and those trends and pick up on them in a way that was helpful to your next step and the decisions that you've had to make?
I don't think it's hard. I think it's what brings you energy in life. It's the same with people. I've always said with staff, if someone walks in the room and your energy goes down, you know something's wrong. Yeah. If they walk in and it's great to see them and you're energised by them being there, you know things are going well. I think that's the same with yourself and what you're doing through the day and the week. If you're with people, and for me, coaching people, teaching people, seeing someone go to a more maximised place where they are using their gifts and their skills and their talents, they're making the world a better place, they're fulfilled, they're achieving their possibility, that just rocks my boat. I love doing that. And so I think it's just simply about looking inside yourself and saying, where are those things where I feel energised, where I just know that, you know, you don't have to pay me to do this.
Yeah, that's right.
I will get out of bed early and I will do more and more of this if I can.
We say around here, what would you do for nothing?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I think the other thing is helpful in this is
don't
just
tell my board that.
Yeah, or mine. Is that perhaps a good question to ask if you're listening to this conversation is someone that's a little bit further down the track than you, whose opinion you trust, is what trends they see in your life might be a good thing as well. Like actually trend spotting in that way.
I can remember coming back from a trip in North America and looking at one particular staff member who was really battling away valiantly, but in an area where she wasn't particularly feeling that energy, that contribution. And I just looked at her and I could see she's a writer, she's an editor, she's a more journalist type person. And when I started feeding that into her, she just came alive.
Yeah.
She's gone in that direction. She's now doing postgraduate studies. She's in a great role and making a maximum contribution in an area where I couldn't.
Yeah. You're not strong.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
So let me throw a couple of thoughts together here. 20 years of ministry, you've got a young family, now a significant responsibility. Along the way, what life lessons have you picked up that have shaped you to this point in time? And how have you fed that into what you would describe as your passions? Because I know one of the connections we have is around leadership. And an ongoing conversation for us is a pipeline of leadership development. So obviously I know that's a passion, but just unfold that for us, those moments where you thought, oh, that's an aha moment, and those passions that you've got.
I think well, some of them are negative. Some of the lessons I've learned are out of the tough things. For example, I think it's very important to realise that all leaders, no one's perfect. And so we can't transpose and project our expectations onto people and then feel let down. We need to release.
Easy to do.
Yeah, we need to release that. I have obviously a great value for leadership, and we need more of them. But we need to enable leaders to be free to be who they are. So I think one lesson would be learning that myself, but also not expecting unrealistically upon other leaders in that area. I think another area where it's really important to do some learning is in understanding our capacity. I worked with one guy who did 110-hour weeks every week of the year.
Wow.
Yeah. It cost his family, I think, greatly. They kind of understood, but as a young man, I just tried to keep up with him. And as a result, I found myself in the coronary unit. I wasn't having a coronary, but it was all stress related, and it was coming out through my chest and stuff. And I had migraines and things like that because I just didn't have that physical capacity. Nor was it healthy now that I have a family to try to keep up with him. And that's the way. What I've learned is his whole life was his job, and I think we're the poorer for it if we don't have a rounded life. So I have learnt to build into my life. We go to the theatre, I follow sport, I go to the gym, I read a lot, have plenty of family time, and yet I'm able to stack heaps into my work. And I think when I look back at this person in 110 hours, I suspect he could have done it in 50. It's just a case of working smart.
So is that two sides of capacity, isn't it? It's not overloading in an unhealthy way, but it's also having a sense of what your capacity is and what you can do about developing it. One of the other objectives of these conversations is personal growth. How do you actually build and expand as a person, and lessons from other people is one of those ways. So, but then just the answer isn't put the accelerator down harder all the time, is it? Sometimes
well, it is at times, but that's got to be only for a season. Otherwise, we hurt ourselves. If we can work in the area where we are red hot, we can get a maximum output. So often what happens is I think we spend 80% of our time working in the 20% of our life that we're just not good at. And whereas if we reverse that and we spend as much time as possible working where we're strong, then if you reverse the output of that, you're going to get 360 times the output in a week. So it's just about being smart.
So what other things have you picked up along the way in that have contributed to the passions that you hold now?
I've certainly learned that people want to be around something that's making a difference. It doesn't matter if it's in a dental clinic or if it's in an accounting firm. They need to have the value of what they're doing attached to what they're doing. And then it can be incredibly enriching. So it's not hard in my area, in ministry, we can see those connections straight away. If you're in a non-for-profit area, if you're in a health area, perhaps you can make those connections more quickly. But actually, most jobs are needed in the world. So people can find value in everything in their unique way of contributing.
In the marketplace.
Everywhere, absolutely.
They're significant lessons, aren't they? Because you do those studies and you see most people don't actually like their jobs. They do it because either we've fallen into this hole of not liking our job, and really what we need to do is just pull our socks up and take our job and love it, and or change jobs.
Well, my counsel would be keep your job and work hard, but start doing some serious reflection about why you're not happy in it. Is it an internal thing that you're not going to be happy in anything, and you need to do some reality checks? More likely, you're not in your right fit. Yeah. So we need to make the courageous decision of maybe letting down parental expectations or society's expectations, but radically going for it. We only have one life. And I know it's a cliche, but we do. And making those decisions so that we are living our life with a maximum output is so important.
And I see that in you and the conversations we've had. What I see is the very natural overflow of the energy that you're now in a place where you can network with people, you can influence influencers, so you can influence at organisational level, not just individual level, but I know you like both. So unpack a little bit this passion around leadership development and leadership pipeline, and it's an ongoing discussion for us, but I'm sure it'll be valuable for everyone we're talking to as well.
Everyone needs to be developed. Yeah. Everyone has the capacity for greater output, whether it's a mum and her little kids, who often need a huge amount of support. It's a tough role. All the way through to a business executive where he or she is running a substantial organisation. We all need to grow to the next step. We all need to come along. We all need people to come alongside of us, whether it's in a formal coaching capacity, whether it's through informal mentoring capacity. I read a lot of biographies, great people in the past: Winston Churchill, William Gladstone. Former English prime ministers, American presidents, military leaders. Colin Powell's biography is just, an American Journey was just wonderful. There's no shortage of opportunities out there for us to grow.
The life example.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Professor Bobby Clinton at Fuller has done some wonderful work on leadership, and his little book, The Making of a Leader, he studied 700 or 800 different biographies and leaders.
Yeah, by little book, you mean that?
No, it's only 300 pages. It's got a glossary of 50 pages for words that he made up. So I think he lives in his own world.
That's a good leader.
But he's condensed those principles of all of those lives into just the different stages we go through. And so I think one of the things that wisdom would suggest to us is it's really important to know the stage of life you're in. Whether you're in a stage of life, in your teenage years or your 20s or your 30s, where it's about different experience and contribution and learning lessons, or whether it's at the other end of life and it's about convergence, which is about multiplying who you are in as wide as possible. It's important to understand those stages of life.
All right, so let's turn the corner a little bit. Advice to the next generation, and obviously you're in a generation, and there's 1 and 2 before you, and there's a number coming after you. What would you pass on, and just simply say, hey, make sure, pick up on this, don't forget that, respond to this? What would you say?
How do we tell the next generation to not learn the lessons the way we learnt them? Look, I think the first thing I would say is, if you need mentoring or coaching, go and ask for it. Most of the time people will say yes. Sometimes that doesn't need to be formalised, but sometimes it does. But if you go to someone who you respect, who's a level above you and more experienced, and is a lot of what you want to attain to, go and ask them and say, can we have coffee? Can we have breakfast once a month? Things like that. I would say, ask for those examples and go for those experiences. I would say work hard and play hard. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think don't sit there waiting for it to come to you. It doesn't.
Proactivity's coming through there.
Well,
get on the front foot.
Absolutely. And it's another cliche, but it's busy people who get asked to do things. Yeah. You don't go and look for someone who's twiddling their fingers and ask them to do a job. It's the people who are already motivated that have to prioritise. Yes, what I would say, add education, informal and formal, into that. I mean, I'm in that game now, but I haven't been for 20 years. But in that process of full-time work, I've done 4 degrees on the way through. I have always worked full-time, and I've done the study on the side.
I did the same.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the same model for me too.
But gear up formally. It's something happens, as well as the formal things you learn and the qualifications. You're just around smart people. Yeah. You meet other people of common interests who enrol in the same kind of courses, and your network expands. You learn horizontally as well as vertically from an information and an experience point of view. So
that's
formal education as well as the informal education talked about, like reading biographies, business books, management books, all sorts of things. I also read in the areas of biological sciences and physics, and because that's the cusp of learning. That's where human society is really on the forefront and learning, and so chaos theory and things like that. There are principles there through writers like Meg Wheatley would probably be the most well known, where we can learn a whole lot of things and apply them to our business and our organisations.
So proactivity, blending formal and informal education, the community and the networks that you're part of as well, that you both have contributed to those, and they stretch you, and also just sort of having a really good sense of what's going on in the world and responding to it as well.
And one more thing I've learned through trial and error, but it's a balanced life.
Yeah.
Really important to sleep well, enjoy life, as I said, work hard and play hard. But go to the gym, go for a walk, get a dog if you don't walk, do whatever you need to do. It's important to have a healthy diet and life, and that otherwise it catches up with us.
It does, doesn't it? Fantastic. Well, that's so helpful. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate Andrew, and just appreciate your company today on this episode of Leader Shift, and we'll see you next time. I'm Rowan Dredge.